3 p.m. Those of you who can, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing, and for a moment of silence or a moment of silent prayer, and please keep in mind those who perished decades ago in the attacks on Pearl Harbor on this very day. Thank you. Please be seated. Members of the council, you have before you a draft agenda. Are any changes needed to the agenda at this time?
None that I see, Mr. Mayor.
None here.
Okay. Hearing no changes, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Seconded.
I'll defer.
The motion was by Councilmember Dixon, the second by Councilmember Foe. Is there any discussion of the agenda? Hearing none, any public comments on the agenda? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. And I will go through the, I was supposed to do a roll call to start this out, wasn't I? Well, we'll do a roll call vote now. I established we had a quorum. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye. We're present.
Well, no, it's aye on this one. We're voting on the agenda.
Oh, I thought we were, yeah, sorry.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry in attendance. I see there's someone who's phoned in, not sure who that is. Councilmember Richardson is ill and will not be in attendance this evening. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Thank you. So the motion passes, I abstain, the motion passes 4-0-1 with 2 members not in attendance, Councilmember Henry and Councilmember Richardson. So the next item on the agenda, and now I've lost that window, but there it is a presentation recognition of human rights, National Human Rights Month. And I'm going to start out in English and then do the second one in Spanish. Proclamation, a proclamation in recognition of National Human Rights Month. Whereas the town of Riverdale Park, mayor and council take pride in joining Americans throughout the country in recognizing December as National Human Rights Month. And whereas on December 10, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which set forth the basic civil standard of economic, political, and social rights that should be guaranteed to every person. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park is a diverse and inclusive community and is committed to leveraging our diversity to continually create a community where the inherent worth and dignity of each person is recognized and celebrated. And whereas the town of Riverdale Park has adopted a diversity and inclusion policy statement that guides the delivery of all town services and requires in part that all people within the town and in their interactions with the town are to be treated fairly, with dignity and equity, and to have their humanity, existence, and contributions valued. And whereas the diversity of our town enriches our community and every aspect of life in Riverdale Park. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Riverdale Park Mayor and Council does hereby proclaim December as National Human Rights Month and calls on everyone in our community to come together to stand up and to speak out for equality, justice, and the dignity of all humans. And en español, proclamación, una proclamación en reconocimiento del Mes Nacional de Derechos Humanos. Considerando que el alcalde y el Consejo Municipal de Riverdale Park se enorgullecen de unirse a los estadounidenses de todo el país para reconocer diciembre como el Mes Nacional de los Derechos Humanos. Y considerando que el 10 de diciembre de 1948, la Asamblea General de las Naciones Unidas adoptó la Declaración Universal de Derechos Humanos que estableció la norma civil básica de derechos económicos, políticos y sociales que deben garantizarse a toda persona. Y considerando que la ciudad de Riverdale Park es una comunidad diversa y inclusiva y está comprometida a aprovechar nuestra diversidad para crear continuamente una comunidad donde se reconozca y celebre el valor heredado y la dignidad de cada persona, y considerando que la ciudad de Riverdale Park ha adoptado una declaración de política de diversidad e inclusión que guía la prestación de todos los servicios de la ciudad y requiere en parte de todas las personas dentro de la ciudad y en sus interacciones con la ciudad sean tratadas de manera justa, con dignidad y equidad, y que se valore su humanidad, existencia y contribuciones. Y por cuanto la diversidad de nuestra ciudad enriquece a nuestra comunidad y cada aspecto de la vida en Riverdale Park. Ahora, por lo tanto, se resuelve que el alcalde y el Consejo Municipal de Riverdale Park por la presente proclaman diciembre como el Mes Nacional de los Derechos Humanos y exhortan a todas en nuestra comunidad a unirse, ponerse de pie y hablar por la igualdad, la justicia y la dignidad de todos los seres humanos. Thank you very much. It's a really great proclamation. I'm highly in support of National Human Rights Month. Okay, it looks like we have a presentation next from the police department on holiday crime prevention.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members, our town staff, and special good evening to our community participants that are viewing from home. On behalf of the men and women of the police department, we want to thank the mayor and the council for giving myself and Assistant Chief Gwixens an opportunity to speak for a few minutes this evening during this holiday time and speak a little bit about holiday crime prevention. I think it's stating the obvious that 2020 has been a year like none other. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to wreak havoc on our communities. Positivity rates are climbing. Hospitalization numbers are climbing. Death rates are climbing. Sometimes it seems like we can't get a break. And I'm mindful that retired General Colin Powell once said, "Bad news isn't like wine, it doesn't improve with age." So at the risk of sharing such information, Assistant Chief Gwixens and I believe that it's important not only for our community to feel safe, but to be safe. And to accomplish that goal, it's important that we share information with our community, even if that information may be less than favorable. Last week, I picked up the Washington Post and saw the front page headline, "1-year-old Carmelo Duncan is the latest victim of gun violence in DC as the homicides hit a 15-year high." And I thought, how does it get any worse than a 1-year-old getting shot? It just leaves you cold. But Carmelo was not just another statistic. He was a baby that never got a chance at life. So while crime may have taken a brief respite, abating slightly during the initial stages of COVID-19, that unfortunately is no longer the case. Locally as well as nationally, we're experiencing spikes in violent crime. The crimes themselves are very troubling, but what's most unsettling is the ages of some of the individuals that are committing these violent acts. In November, Baltimore City charged 14 individuals with carjackings. 12 of those arrested were juveniles. In Prince George's County, arrestees have been as young as the age of 12. Anybody possessing a weapon that's threatening to do harm is frightening. A weapon in the hands of one who thinks that he or she can push a button and just reboot is terrifying. So although the police department posts crime information in the biweekly status and information report, our concern is that the static nature of the words may not always reflect a sense of urgency that may be warranted. One of the advantages of municipal policing is our closeness with the community. Municipal policing, we feel, is unique, and the relationship that we have with our residents is essential to the work that we do in keeping everyone safe. Settings like this, we believe, provide the opportunity for direct dialogue and information sharing that seldom exists with larger departments. So we're thankful for this evening that we can take a few minutes to provide an overview of what we're experiencing here in Riverdale Park and the surrounding area. Our hope is that a well-informed community is a safer community. With that, I'd like to turn the mic, at least virtually, over to Assistant Chief Gwixons for our presentation, and upon conclusion, we'll certainly entertain any questions. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks for coming out. So we just wanted to go over, this being the holiday season, it's not your typical holiday season with the hustle and bustle of shopping that we would normally see. But there are still people out there doing some shopping, and unfortunately we've got some bad guys out there. We've had a couple incidents in the town, a couple carjackings, which is not commonplace within Riverdale Park, but sadly it has become commonplace in the surrounding jurisdiction. So we just wanted to bring it to light, talk about crimes against persons, crimes against properties, and go over a few things that you could do to try to just increase your situational awareness and not put yourself in a situation that you're making yourself vulnerable or allowing yourself to be vulnerable. When we talk about crimes against person, it's a crime that has an element where a force or a threat of force is being used. Crimes against property, it's just against, there is no threat against anything. It's a car, stuff taken out of your car, your house getting burglarized, but it's not actually putting you directly in danger. The carjackings right now, I'll bring up the numbers in the next couple slides here, but a carjacking, definition of carjacking is the taking of a motor vehicle in the possession of another through the use of force or threat of force. Common denominators there, these crimes are all crimes of opportunity, and the element of surprise is typically always there. They typically will occur near main arteries where they have a quick avenue of escape. We usually see along Kenilworth Avenue, East-West Highway, and Route 1. They're typically armed. Oftentimes they will typically pull up behind you and try to block you in, jump out of if they're in a car, they'll jump out of the car, drag you out of the car, and then take the car that you're in. Also, they'll bump you from the rear, pretend like it's an accident. You get out of the car, they get out of the car, they take the car that you were driving. The next slide starts to show some numbers, some crime stat numbers that are going on within District 1. I think that's the next slide. I'm sorry. This is the map of District 1, and it's broken down by beats. Adams sector is the, if you're looking, you've got north and south, east and west. Adams sector is towards the west of Route 1, which pretty much separates the district in half, splits the district in half. Baker sector is to the east. We occupy Baker 3 and Baker 4 beats. Very little of Baker 4, most of Baker 3. And the next slide, we'll get into, I believe, the statistical numbers. The one that really shows you, this is just a week's worth of numbers. If you go to the next slide, it'll show you the drastic increases that we have, obviously the town has had, but as well District 1 has had, in just the number alone compared 2019 to 2020. You see in 2019 year to date they had 11. This year so far there's been 54. So that's a number increase by 43. They're up 390%. So obviously that's huge. Like the chief stated earlier, in one of our carjackings, one of the suspects was as young as 12 and he was armed with a gun. Most of these are crews that are coming out of the district. And again, they're using Kenilworth Avenue to come in and out. So fortunately, no one was injured, and that has been pretty steady throughout these incidents. People are not fighting them. They're just getting out of the car, and the bad guys are taking the cars and running away. Let's see.
I can interrupt for just 1 second. I want to be mindful that the carjackings, the number there, 54, are the numbers that are handled by the Prince George's County Police Department. They do not include the numbers for the surrounding municipalities. So the number is actually considerably higher when we add in Riverdale Park, Greenbelt, Hyattsville City, Edmonston, Mount Rainier, and other surrounding jurisdictions. So that's why it's such a concern to us, is the numbers, the sheer numbers over where we were this time last year. I'm sorry, Rosa, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I had that on a sticky to mention it, so thank you. I was going to gloss over that. So with the next slide, we'll talk about a few prevention measures that we were talking about. And the biggest part is just trying to be aware of your surroundings. Always think about your next move. If something were to happen, and I hate living in fear, and I hate trying to instill fear in people, but you have to keep your head on a swivel, and you have to think about ways to get out. If something were to happen, you always have to have a way to get out. When you're in your car, always keep your doors locked. Keep your mobile phone handy. If anything were to, keep it in your pocket. So if for some reason you do have to jump out of your car for any reason, you have your phone with you. The chief can touch on the carjacking lure victims. I feel like sometimes, like I said, it's a crime of opportunity. They wait for you to be vulnerable. Never sit in your car alone in dark, isolated places, and never use isolated ATMs, day or night. Nowadays, there's tons of drive-through ATMs. Opt for those versus anything that you have to get out of your car and walk up to, most especially at night.
When we're talking about luring victims, the individuals will approach you under the pretense that they're asking for the time. What time is it? Well, that's typically an indicator that things are not going to go well. And again, as Rosa said, we don't want folks living in fear, but we do want folks to be aware of what's going on around them, and to be just take the necessary safety precautions. These crimes tend to be violent. And a number of the reports that we've seen very recently, individuals victims that have resisted, and we'll get to that, individuals that have resisted or attempted to resist are frankly lucky to be alive, because in several of those cases, the suspects have discharged those weapons in the direction of the victims, and only by divine intervention or sheer luck, or a combination of both, that the rounds did not take effect. So if you find yourself in a situation like this, your safety is the utmost importance. A car can be replaced, property can always be replaced, your life cannot. It's better to surrender the property. And as Rosa said, if you've got your cell phone with you, an immediate call to 911.
And don't wait till you get home. We recently had a citizen robbery where the victim waited a good 20 minutes before calling us, and it's just we've lost any attempt or any ability to catch the bad guy at that point. That's it.
Thank you.
Obviously, we want everyone to have a safe holiday, a memorable holiday, but we want those to be good memories of family and family times together to the degree that the current situation allows. But we are committed to the safety of this town. That's why we're here this evening. And we just thought that it was important to share this information. Certainly entertain any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. Are there any questions for Chief Morris from either the council or members of the public?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please do, Councilman Lingua.
Chief Morris and Assistant Chief Gwixon, regarding the two recent hijackings along Kenilworth Avenue, where according to reports, the victims were stopped because they were waiting for the intersection light to change. Were these, it wasn't clear in the reports, were these vehicles at the front, at the stop lines? Were they at the rear? I mean, I'm asking this because when you're bringing up situational awareness, is there a greater risk depending on where you are in relation to being stopped at a traffic signal?
So one of the carjackings occurred at an intersection controlled by a stop sign. They were just stopped. It wasn't a traffic signal. The other one occurred in a parking lot where they were boxed in or blockaded. And in that particular situation, there were 3 victims in the car when they were blocked in, and the suspects took the car as well as the car that they used to blockade. So as Rosa mentioned, these tend to occur in areas that have a quick avenue of escape. A lot of these vehicles, when they are eventually recovered, are recovered in the district. So they're coming out of the district and they're heading straight back into the district. And frankly, they can be into the district within 2 to 3 minutes.
Correct. Yeah.
So yeah, gas stations, 7-Elevens, not to name a particular location, but locations where it's quick convenience stops. And when they're not stealing the vehicle in the sense of the carjacking where they're armed and taking the car, just another point that is, as it's getting colder, a lot of drivers were creatures of comfort. So pulling into convenience stops to run in and grab a cup of coffee, folks are leaving their keys in the ignition with their engine running, and those cars are very quickly and very easily stolen. So while that's a property crime, not a crime against person, it's equally concerning for us because those cars are then subsequently used in other types of crimes.
And not just running into the 7-Eleven, also warming up your car in the morning. We call them jump-ins. And you run outside, you turn your car on, you go back inside to get your things so you can get into a nice warm car. It literally takes 2 seconds for them to come through. They drive through neighborhoods and they see cars running. They get out. Typically, they're occupied more than one time. And somebody jumps out of the car and jumps in your car and it's gone. It's literally that quick.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Assistant Chief Gwixons or Chief Morris?
Mayor, this is Liz Bolin. Are you taking questions from the community?
Definitely.
Thank you. Chief Morris, Assistant Chief Gwixons, thank you for doing this presentation. My question is if there's any commonality among either the 2 carjackings that happened in town or the ones in the surrounding area in the the nature of the vehicles that are being targeted. For example, SUVs versus sedans, older versus newer. I know a lot of the newer vehicles have the push button ignition. So, you know, if the person doesn't have, who's stealing the car, if they also don't get the remote control, can they drive it very far? So what are the characteristics of the cars that are being stolen? Is there any commonality there?
For ours, there has been no commonality. One of them was a 2013 VW Passat and one was a 2018 RAV4. Really nothing, stark about either one of them. So there's been no commonalities. As far as the suspects, they're just roaming around looking for the opportunity. They're not looking to, looking at Riverdale Park specifically. They're just riding around District 1 and the county as a whole, looking for victims.
So while we mentioned the District 1 numbers being up, know that the carjackings throughout the county, all 8 districts are up considerably, countywide well over 175% over this time last year. In raw numbers, that's 234 this year compared to 85 last year countywide. So interestingly, this generation doesn't know how to drive a standard transmission. So one particular incident, they weren't able to get the car moving because they didn't know how to operate that third pedal on the floor called a clutch. It's somewhat humorous, but no less dangerous.
Yep. That's true.
It's pretty hard to even buy a car with a clutch these days. So I'm surprised they found one.
I'd
Okay.
like to thank our resident for joining
I have a
in
question.
there.
Ms. Katz, yes.
Yes. Chief, Assistant Chief, thank you so much for the report. I really appreciate the initiative you show to get this message out to the public. This is what got me to the meeting tonight, actually, was this topic. But I have a kind of 2 questions. One was, are car thefts up, that like car out of the driveway kind of thefts?
Ours within Riverdale Park are not. And let's see, the county.
The stolen autos in District 1 are up 9.5% over this time last year. Countywide, there's an increase of 14.1%. That's in stolen vehicles. So, so as Rosa mentioned, we're not seeing the significant increase of stolen autos in the town, but we are seeing them in the surrounding areas.
I see. And the reason I ask it just concerns me. Obviously, carjacking would be an awful thing. And that's something about, situational awareness. But when cars are stolen from your driveway, I mean, that's even more concerning to me, that at night people are, coming to, would come to my property and do something like that. So it's good to hear it's not up as much as the carjackings. But I was curious, is there any kind of psychological trend? Do you know what these kids have to benefit by doing a carjacking? I'm curious what that motivation is, especially a 12-year-old that I can't imagine would even be physically large enough to drive a car very well.
You would think.
Yeah, that you get, either crash or get picked up immediately. It just doesn't seem like a high return on investment activity crime for those people. So I'm wondering if there's any understanding as to what's motivating this, or if there's any themes there.
I honestly don't know. It's been a while since I've talked to any of these, violators. Sometimes it's just the thrill of it, honestly. And they go out and commit other crimes in these vehicles because they think it can't be tied to them. Other than that, I don't really have I wish I had an answer. And a lot of times they get locked up and they're released the same day because of their age. So there's really no repercussions for their actions, sadly.
Laura, that is a great question. And as to just add to what Rosa said, some of these individuals, when they're arrested, they think it's a joke. They think it's a game. It's a very dangerous game for everybody involved. Some of them have made comments about how they are able to outrun the police. And the reality is that we have certain pursuit limitations when it comes to vehicle pursuits, because we look at the safety of the larger motoring public. And so it's from a psychological standpoint, they're kids with an immature brain that are committing very heinous acts. And to the degree of, you mentioned their size, some of these kids today that are
Bigger.
12 or 13 years old are bigger than I am. So, and very streetwise as well.
Chief, I'm sorry, one other question, if I could just ask, is regarding with just even in our jurisdiction up 300 some percent, and like you mentioned, it's just representative of the region at large. Is there any changes or additional collaboration going on between police departments to maybe focus in on this particular crime? Be more somehow work together more quickly to find the stolen vehicles or react to what's going on?
Rosa, you want to take that?
Yes, absolutely. Detective Prodzik is in constant contact with the county detectives that handle these carjacking incidents. And in fact, the one where I mentioned the 12-year-old, they had committed a carjacking in George Sector. Ours was committed at a little after midnight. And the one in District 3 off of Landover Road was committed later that morning. And immediately a phone call was made to Detective Prodzik because they believed that these were our guys that had committed our carjacking as well. So no, there's great collaboration with the detectives and our CID as well. We work hand in hand with each other.
We receive every morning, like clockwork at 7 o'clock, we receive from Prince George's County both a crime report, 24-hour crime report, as well as a fusion report with all of the serious crimes that occurred throughout the county in the previous 24 hours. So there's that constant exchange of information. And then throughout the day, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many reports we get through MCAC for crimes that are occurring, whether they're occurring in DC or Northern Virginia or Anne Arundel County or Montgomery County. So that information flows as quickly as what the detectives can get the information to the MCAC, the information gets out of MCAC and into the hands of the rest of the police departments.
Great, thank you so much. And in particular, I'm thinking about between us and DC, since you say a lot of this
Yes.
is coming in and out of DC, a lot of these people. So, but thank you very much for all the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Okay, are there additional questions from the council or from members of the public? Don't want to move on too quickly here.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Please speak.
Diane Collis. Chief and Assistant Chief, you mentioned the bump situation where somebody would rear end you and then approach your car while you're out. Can you make a recommendation of how we can handle such a situation? I mean, if you're out on a dark street and somebody rear ends you, you pretty much have to get out of your car.
You do, but if it's a legitimate accident, I would try to pull into a well-lit, if there's like we mentioned before, 7-Eleven or someplace that's occupied and well-lit versus stopping on a dark street. You're just putting yourself in a vulnerable position. Unless you're obviously, if you're injured or if the car is disabled, then obviously that's not, you know, that's a moot point. But if you're able to slowly put your hazards on and slowly, so that if it is a legitimate accident, they will follow you and you can exchange information, call the police from there. But otherwise, I would not, you know, unless you absolutely have to, I would not get out of the car. Just follow your gut on a lot of these things. Your gut is always right.
Thank you. And thanks for making us aware of this.
Sure.
And on that note, a somewhat different type of situation. There's a lot of unmarked police vehicles out here, and but there are also a lot of situations, and we're seeing more and more of them, where individuals are impersonating police officers and making what they believe to be a traffic stop, or you believe to be a traffic stop, and then they're being robbed. So the same situation applies. A police officer in an unmarked car is particularly sensitive to the fact that there is a difference between a car that is fleeing and eluding and a car that is driving slowly until they get to a well-lit area. And so that same rule applies, and the officers understand that situation and the concern that it may bring when you're in a less than populated or not a particularly well lit area, and you're just trying to get to that area.
Thank you.
That's actually very good advice, Chief. Thank you for that one. I would not have thought of that, but it, it makes sense. Are there additional public or council questions for the chief or deputy chief?
I have a question. If there aren't any more public questions.
Please go ahead and ask.
Chief, are these, I know there were a few like thefts of wheels in my neighborhood on cars and airbags. Are those, I'm assuming those aren't counted as carjackings, or are they?
No, that too is a good question for a clarification, council member. A theft from auto, whether it's a theft of the tires or a theft of the airbags, that's a crime against property. So it's not a direct threat to the owner versus the crime against person, where your physical being is actually threatened, which occurs in a carjacking or a robbery, a homicide, things of that nature, or rape. So airbags are a hot commodity. One of the best prevention measures to avoid the theft or abate the theft of an airbag is the use of a club. It goes across the steering wheel, and while it may not deter the theft of the car completely, they're not going to get the airbag if that's what they're targeting. Likewise, the best defense against having tires stolen, and I will say this, they can get the tires off pretty quickly. If anybody that's ever seen a car on cinder blocks, it's simply slide the blocks under, put a pin in, deflate the tires, remove the needle from the stem, and the tires quickly deflate, and then they can take the tires right off the car. So the best defense against that is locking lug nuts. And we see a spate of those. They come and go. We get the arrests, and it goes away for a little while, and then, like anything else, it cycles back through.
Well, thank you. And I will add that I don't know if it was specifically mentioned. I don't think I heard it, but one of the sort of, I guess it's crime against property, is just having someone go in and take something out of your car. And in a time, I know for me during COVID, where it's hectic, I'm managing being a kindergarten teacher and a full-time job. And I parked my car out front a few months ago, and I guess I must have forgotten to lock it. And the following day, it was subtle, but there were just things that seemed out of place. And ultimately, I realized that someone had gone into my car, had taken sort of the money that was in the armrest and left the car intact. But, you know, it did still feel like a violation to know that someone was rummaging through your car. So something to be mindful of.
That's a great point, Councilmember. And even though this is a different type of a Christmas and holiday season for shopping, folks are still going out. So we encourage, don't leave those gifts in the open in the car, even if the car is locked. They're quick to break a window, put your purchases in the trunk, or cover them with a blanket in the back of the car, but try to keep them out of sight. And by all means, lock your cars.
Okay, any more questions? Are we ready to move on the agenda? It's pretty quiet. Thank you again, Chief and Deputy Chief. Appreciate the information, the briefing, and the advice. It's all very helpful, and hopefully it will lead to people having a much happier holiday season. And I'll just mention for anyone who's thinking about it that and it's good to think about these things, is that you can replace your car. If you take a bullet, it's really hard to get back from that. And so the car, just let them take it, and hope that you walk away and can pick up from there. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is my report, and want to start it out by wishing everyone a happy but safe holiday. After the police report, then that's of course even more pointed than perhaps it was before the police report. And there's many ways in which we need to be aware of what's going on and being safe. And I'll sort of touch on a few of those in the rest of my report. And by the way, despite what anyone might think, I am actually not trying to grow a Santa Claus beard. I just have been not going to get my hair cut fairly at all since the COVID pandemic started. So that's what's going on. So Thanksgiving has passed, of course, and I spoke to Reverend Sly last week, and the contributions that we made to the Thanksgiving event were very much appreciated. The people who received the food were very happy to get it, and I'm proud of the town for stepping up and providing the resources so that those people could have a nice turkey dinner on Thanksgiving Day. Switching to the topic of COVID, which of course is something that I always touch on in these reports these days. The situation is bad, and it is very likely to get worse before it gets better. The 7-day moving average, sort of average over the last week of deaths in the United States, is over 2,000. I believe it's around 2,300 per day. So that means in the last week, 15,000 people have died of COVID. It's real and it's serious. And while I saw that Thanksgiving Day was a lot quieter, the travel before and after was a lot quieter than usual, there was still a lot. And I suspect that there were a lot of infections during that. So there's nothing new to share really. There's a little bit new is that I believe that vaccinations are going to start in the United Kingdom and England tomorrow or the day after. So they are getting their first vaccines out there. And we're expecting them here in the United States anytime. The numbers need to be submitted to the FDA, and they will need a few weeks to review the applications, and then we should start seeing them come out. So that's new, but other than that, and those vaccines are going to go to healthcare workers and nursing home residents first, then the rest of us have a while to wait before we can get a vaccination. And so during that time, you've heard me say it 100 times, wear a mask, wash your hands, keep your distance. And one thing in particular, I hate to do this because I know our local restaurants are struggling and having trouble financially, is that restaurants and bars are a particularly dangerous place, and you should be very careful. I highly recommend takeout. I miss having fresh fish and chips right out of the kitchen. Also, I haven't had fish and chips in a while, but I am going to wait for it, and I'm going to get it after the pandemic is abated. And I highly recommend that others do the same. Moving on, we had Representative Alonzo Washington visit us in October and discuss the fact that the county was involved in a review of policing. The report from that commission came out a few days ago. And I will confess that I've been very busy the last several days and only took like 15 or 20 minutes and skimmed it. It looks pretty reasonable. They're recommending applying some resources to mental health issues and some other fairly common sense things. And I will read it more carefully over the weeks ahead. And I encourage everyone on the council to take a look at it as well. I had the pleasure last week to testify in favor of a bill that's introduced by Delegate Nicole Williams that I requested, which is to allow automated enforcement of our truck exclusions. And so we have a restriction of under 5 tons gross vehicle weight on almost all the residential streets in the town. And it is hard to enforce this. And the city of Baltimore has a provision in state law that allows them to do this in an automated way, basically a truck height camera. So if a truck larger than that goes past, then it gets a photo taken, gets an automatic ticket. And so Delegate Williams has introduced a bill, and I had the pleasure of testifying for that last Thursday. And I will let some of the people in town who I know are interested in this know about the next hearing schedule, and you can show up yourself virtually and testify in favor if you would like to do that. And last but not least on my list of things to discuss, we have a meeting about Wells Run and the construction progress, and that is on December 17th at 7 p.m. And I'm pretty sure the town will publicize how to connect to the meeting on the social media outlets. And this is a meeting that's being run by the county, of course, since it's their jurisdiction, but they will be speaking to us in a week and a half or so about what's going on there. So again, happy holidays to everyone, and I will see you all in the new year unless you show up to our work session. That concludes the mayor's report. Any questions? Hearing none, let's move on to the town manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the community and the staff team. A few things this evening, sir. One, just to follow up on the Wells Run community meeting, pre-registration for that meeting is required. And that's something that the county is handling. But as the mayor said, you'll be able to find information about the meeting on our website and through our social media platforms. The town hall operations and the Department of Public Work operations will be closed on December 25th and on January 1st in observance of those holidays. And the mayor and council's next work session is December 21st, so a few days before the holiday break. We have a number of holiday events that are happening differently this year. I'll say it that way. The town and I want to recognize the police department's leading the way on this and recognize their good work reaching out to the community. But the food baskets this year will be picked up by appointment on December 11th. We're having our toy drive, and we're still working out the exact details in terms of how the toys will be distributed. But if anyone would like to donate a new unwrapped toy, toys can be dropped off at the police department, or if someone chooses, they can purchase toys virtually and have them delivered or shipped to the police department at 5004 Queensbury Road. We have a Festival of Lights contest going on currently. Please visit the town's website for details. And the town's offering some prizes, namely some gift cards to town-based restaurants. So we encourage people to decorate for the holidays, as well as participate in this contest, and then hopefully win, and then patronize our businesses. The finance team is busy already preparing for the budget. The budget process this year, like last, is going to take some time to sort through the economic impact and making projections out through the next fiscal year. I also wanted to share with the mayor and council and the community that we're gearing up for snow season. Department of Public Works is gearing up for snow season. We are bringing on some seasonal help, some additional staffing. And just one way that COVID can impact us that we're doing our best to prepare for is if we have staff that become exposed or infected themselves in a small operation, that could have a really serious impact on our ability to deliver services. So we want everyone to be safe in the community. We are developing backup plans. Ms. Lewis and I today discussed a contractual relationship. Should we have staff that are out with the same company that handles a lot of our landscaping services. So we're developing backup plans should we run into those sorts of things, because it's really important we deliver top quality snow removal service. We always have. And we're developing backup plans should we be impacted by COVID. That's all I have this evening, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. I have one quick question. What's the schedule for the Toys for Tots? How long can people drop off toys?
Rosa, are you still on? Or Chief?
Yeah, we're still working out with the Riverdale Elementary School to get the list. So we're probably looking at sometime around I'm going to say the 17th or 18th for making the delivery, but we'll take anything when it comes in, and we'll take them afterwards too. We'll certainly make good use of anything that comes in.
You'll find someone to get it.
There's
the
a child out there in need.
And the age range is in the elementary school age range, is that right? So sort of 5 to 11 or so.
Generally speaking, but we always take get a few extra things for the even younger or even a little older. Again, we come across those kids, and we don't want to leave we're not going to leave any child out.
Great. Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
So any additional questions for the town manager from other people? Going once. Could be council members or members of the public. Okay. Let's move on the agenda to the finance report.
And we have Mr. Jones here tonight, and he'll be covering that.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. I will be covering the finance reports, as John just previously mentioned. So to begin, for November, our revenue for FY 2021 is $1,354,000. Expenditures for November, $572,000, with a net of $781,000. Year to date, we are at $6,021,000. Expenditures are at $2,615,000, with a net of $3,405,000. So overall, we do like where we are as far as revenue is concerned. I did mention in my previous report about us having to back out some of the revenue that we have for TIF. We're still waiting on the final amount for that number, but we have an estimate of about $400,000. So that revenue will be back down to roughly $954,000, giving us a net of $381,000. So yeah, that covers the finance reports for the month of November and year to date.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Are there questions for Mr. Jones from the council? Any questions from members of the public? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to adopt the finance report?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the finance report subject to audit.
Second.
Thank you. So this motion was made by Councilman Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Dixon. Is there any discussion of this? Hearing none, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is still absent, is that correct? Councilmember Richardson is absent. Councilmember Mayers.
aye.
Thank you. I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. The next item on the agenda is the correspondence summary. Everyone should have a copy of that. Are there any questions or actions that need to come out of the correspondence summary? Hearing none, move on to the fire department report. I did not receive a fire department report. Mr. Town Manager, did you receive one?
We did not, sir.
Yes, I believe that they're focused actually on responding to fires during the pandemic and not on generating reports. So I'm okay with that. That brings us to council, committee, and ward reports. So let's start with Councilmember Dixon.
Mr. Mayor, I don't actually have a lot to report this month. I just want to wish everyone a safe and healthy and happy holiday. I would like to receive the link and the information for the county meeting so that I can disseminate it to some of the specific residents in my ward who would be interested in attending that meeting. So for those residents or for everyone, you can look out for the email notifying you of it. Beyond that, I don't have anything else.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Foe.
Good evening, everyone. See, Mr. Mayor, your beard hair is only the second thing that I notice when I'm entering into this meeting. Chief Morris's flowing locks are remarkable. So I'm sorry he steals the show. Very much like Ward 1 council member, I don't have very much this evening. I do hope that everybody has a remarkable holiday. But as a friend that I took a socially distanced walk with said today, it's going to be strange for everybody. So we're in that struggle we'll be sharing together. So I hope that everybody is able to share together safely. With that being said, shop local if you can. Businesses depend on us. If you can give a gift, please think about, buying a gift card. I know that Denizens is not currently serving food at Riverdale Park, and I cannot wait till those wings come back. So on nights that we would purchase, I'm going to look at that as an opportunity to go out and buy a gift card and spend it when food returns. The last thing that I have tonight, I did get a message from Karen McAllister. She said she noticed the 20-mile-an-hour signs throughout our community. And she said, that's amazing. And she immediately followed that up with, now we need to engineer the roads, narrow it with bike lanes and other traffic calming devices. I always trust that Karen will keep us honest. And I look forward to the next things that we add in our community to provide commuter safety or pedestrian safety. With that, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to all of you who have joined the meeting tonight on Zoom. Let's be fairly brief. From the Central Kenilworth Avenue Revitalization CDC, I noticed that there is holiday works on paper for sale between December 3rd and December 20th. This is a high quality artwork from local artists, be those prints, photographs, lithographs, lino cuts, wood cuts, etchings, aquatints, or posters. And proceeds from these sales will go to the Greater Riverdale Cares and Route 1 Community Cares program, which is under the umbrella of CCAR CDC. To find out more, you can go to the website, ccarscdc.org. Speaking of this program, I received a call late last week from a former council member in University Park who's involved with this, and they inquired to me to ask if the town would consider making a second $10,000 donation to the Greater Riverdale Cares Route 1 Communities Care program to help with meals for families in need. This may be something what we may want to consider under new business this evening, or if this is already part of what we're looking to do with the CARES Act money reimbursement that we're looking at, or the reallotment. I'll leave that for us to decide later. Last week also, myself, the mayor, and Councilmember Dixon were part of a virtual meeting with for Prince George's County for a number of bills that were being introduced, and 3 of those bills of particular interest to us, brought to our attention by Jimmy Spiropoulos at Town Center Market. Bills 305, 306, and 307 dealt with the issuance of liquor licenses within the county. In a couple cases, the augmentation of liquor licenses within the county. Mr. Spiropoulos gave testimony on this with concerns about how this would affect his business. I agree with Mr. Spiropoulos in the sense that some of these bills could have a detrimental effect on the business that has been developed at Town Center Market. Personally, I do not feel that there is a need for an increase of purchasing outlets for liquor in a broad sense, be that or the purchase of alcohol, be that in a broad sense, be that higher proof liquors, wine or beer, in the sense that Prince George's County has a considerable number of locations already in existence. I think this is something that if residents do have an opinion on, I would encourage them to look up these bills and to weigh in, be that with your District 22 representatives and or us as a council, and we'd be happy to convey that forward. In regards to there, I did receive one email by chance from Councilmember Glaros's office regarding the Holiday Joy for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities, which will be December 16th. Councilmember's office is proud to partner again with the Prince George's County's Department of Family Services to distribute boxes of meals and boxes of groceries, as well as boxes of holiday treats to District 3 seniors age 60 and over and individuals with disabilities of any age, and this will be occurring on Wednesday, December 16th. They encourage registering as soon as possible to pick up or request delivery of these boxes on December 16th. They're seeing this as the last distribution of the funds they have, which are needing to be spent for their program. I know there will be information up on the town website, which will, and I would imagine other avenues to be able to find this out. So folks who would like to take advantage of this can. And with that, as everyone else has said, have a safe holiday. Wear a mask, wash your hands, try to keep socially distanced, and stay safe. And with that, I will conclude my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lingua. I'd just like to point out that County Bill 305 is the truck legislation that I spoke in favor of, and 306 and 307 were the affecting liquor licenses in the county.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you for
there's
that clarification.
Of course.
I remembered something about 305 being about having something regarding location of a place which is allowed to sell beer and wine in regards to location to, I believe it was a church.
No, that was I think that was 308.
It was 308.
Actually.
My
But
apologies.
I lose track. There are so many of them.
There were numerous ones that night, which, you know, to add on at the end, I do encourage folks to go on to the state website and look at the bills that are being introduced and that would affect Prince George's County.
Okay. Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Henry is still not here. Is that correct? Still absent? Don't see him.
Don't see him.
Excuse me? Is Councilman Henry here? Okay, Councilman Mayers.
Good evening, everyone. No ward report at this time. I would just like to take this time to wish everyone a safe and happy holiday.
Thank you so much. Okay, that brings us to the end of council committee and ward reports. So let's go to public comments on non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Are there any public comments this evening? I'm scanning, looking for a raised hand or an open mic. Valerie H.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
I was just wondering when the sidewalk project was going to commence on 48th Avenue, if there are any updates on that.
Mr. Town Manager?
Yes. I'm not sure if we have a date back from the county. There was a procedural thing between the county and the federal Department of Housing and Urban Development, who's funding the project. And as soon as we have the release of funds, then we will advertise for a contractor. At this point, I believe we're looking, weather permitting, in early spring.
Does that answer your questions, Valerie?
Yes, thank you very much.
Of course. Are there other public comments? All of the microphones look muted, so I'm going to take that as no other public comments. Okay, let's move into the legislative action items, and let me get them up on my screen. Legislative action item 1 is about salt utilization between salt agreement between the Town of Riverdale Park and the Maryland Department of Transportation. Do you want to, is there a staff report and then someone can make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Ivy will be able to provide an update there. And perhaps I missed it, but did you want to handle the consent? You're muted, sir.
Excuse me, I did skip right over that. I was so excited about getting to legislative action items that skipped over the consent agenda. So we do not discuss the consent agenda. So can I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda item?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion was made by Councilmember Dixon, seconded by Councilmember Mayers. As I said, there's no discussion of this item, so I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe, Councilmember Foe, are you in attendance?
He's there. He's muted currently, sir.
Why don't we skip over him and come back? Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is still absent, I believe. Councilmember Richardson is absent. Councilmember Mayers
Aye.
and Councilmember Foe is unmuted now. Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Thank you. I will abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Okay, back to the main legislative action items, salt utilization agreement. Mr. Town Manager.
Yes. Ivy, are you able to address this?
Yes, with a quick presentation, staff is requesting Mayor and council authorize the manager to sign the salt utilization agreement with the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration to provide salt to the town for winter maintenance services. The agreement provides a third source for salt. The other two are the cities of College Park and Hinesville. The agreement will run for 3 years and expire on August 31st, 2023. The cost per ton from the state is competitive and is actually a decrease from the 2016 agreement. Staff will use this source as needed, as the other two are in closer proximity to our operation in DPW. And with that, I can answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Are there council questions on this item? Everyone is still muted. I'll take that as a no. Are there public questions about this item? Okay, can I have a motion to approve or to authorize the town manager to sign a salt utilization agreement between the town and the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration for the distribution of salt?
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Dixon, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Any discussion? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is still absent, I believe. Councilmember Richardson is absent. Councilmember Mayers,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1.
Thank you.
The next item is a motion to authorize the town manager to sign an amendment to the April 16, 2018 municipal participation agreement between the town and Prince George's County regarding the Longfellow Street Stormwater Project. I'm going to ask that we've been discussing this for a while. I'm going to ask for a motion to start.
So moved.
Motion to authorize. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
I'm going to give it to Councilmember Dixon. So the motion by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Dixon to authorize the town manager to sign the proffered amendment to the agreement. Is there discussion of this item? Or can staff make a presentation on this item? Just for those who may not have been in the meetings where we discussed it previously.
Ms. Lewis, do you want to give an overview or?
Sure. This amendment is actually a major step towards the construction of the design solution that's been developed to address flooding on Longfellow along with the street and on 2 private properties that sustained significant and consistent flooding. We've been working on this project for at least 10 months. The existing agreement was established in 2018. We've made significant progress. The county staff and the Department of the Environment is supportive of the design solution. There is 2 alternates being considered for one of the private properties. There seems to be consensus around the second design element that would direct stormwater from the back and side yards of 4705 Longfellow directly to the street, instead of to the adjacent property and then out to the street. In addition to the sign agreement that the county has requested from the town, county staff has also requested that the town submit written justification for the increased cost from $100,000 to $200,000 and the timeline extension from, I'm sorry, and it's too. I hung up on my sister. She's probably going to call me back. Excuse me for that. So the county staff is asking for justification for both the increase in cost and the timeline extension. The justification is pretty straightforward. The original estimate that was of the budget included in the agreement was not based on any information on the location of condition of existing stormwater facilities. The first or second. Excuse me.
I can pick up here, Ivy. So the what we're asking for is authority for me to sign this, and it will take the budget from the 100,000 to 200,000 with a 20% contingency. Even the most involved alternate plans are projected to be no more than 203,000. So we believe that the 200,000 would be sufficient to cover this. We do anticipate this project to be constructed in the second quarter of 2021. It's pretty standard, though, for these types of agreements when you have an extension for them to be extended a year, and that's what this does.
I apologize again, but I would just add that the justification that we were asked for is pretty straightforward, and we have no doubt that it will be received by the committee that's going to approve the additional funding and timeline. Thank you.
Thank you. So the county, this is a different aspect of county staff that's asking for this, or it's the people you've been discussing?
Actually, it's the staff in the Department of the Environment, but that's the process for amending the municipal participation agreement. And there is a county committee that's actually going to review the amendment and make the decision.
Okay, so this is just part of the process.
Exactly. It's being provided, justification is being provided to that committee.
Okay. Okay, are there questions about questions or comments about this motion from members of the council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Director Lewis, a quick clarification regarding alternative B, which said here is looking to be the preferred alternative. Regarding how the water is going to be collected on the west side of 4705 and then pushed out to Longfellow Street.
There will be a trench running north and south on that property, and I believe it's an 8-inch PVC pipe that will take it to the nearest inlet. If I could share my screen, I could show you a rough sketch of that design.
Okay.
So actually, both alternatives are shown on this graphic.
Okay.
See my,
Yes, I'm seeing your
my
cursor.
cursor.
Yes.
So that was the original design where we see the red X's. And so that trench or diaphragm is going to be eliminated. And instead, there will be a new yard inlet and a 15, not sure of the size of this line
Okay.
from the property north and south. And then on the west side that you're inquiring about, there will be a second yard drain and then 8-inch PVC pipe taking it to the street, and then a 15-foot of reinforced concrete pipe that's taking it to this inlet 1.
Okay. And of course that's running all underground.
Well, the trench is
The trench is there, but I mean,
yes, but
the
this,
MH2 part to MH1 is
that's right.
underneath
It's right
the
off the
sidewalk
ground.
there,
Exactly.
or the ground there.
So it's
Okay.
missing an easement along this line.
Okay.
You should expect to see that when the final design is completed.
Okay. So essentially it'll be draining off the property on both sides.
Exactly, directly from this property as opposed to going
Okay.
to the adjacent property and then out.
And then there's going to be a third collection and drainage point on the east side of 4709. Is that correct?
Yes, this line will remain. This was a part of the
Okay.
original design, yes. So this
Okay.
drain, 4709, and the stormwater infrastructure for 4705 will in fact be on this property. That's the biggest change at this point.
Okay.
And that
Thank you.
responds to the residents' concern about the amount of stormwater that actually collects on the west side of the property.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for that clarification, and as well, thank you for the effort that you've made and your staff has made over the past number of months regarding this and moving it forward.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, are there additional council questions on this this motion? Are there public comments on this motion or questions? Okay, then let's go ahead and vote on it. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is still absent, I presume. Councilmember Richardson is absent and ill. Councilmember Mayers. Did we? No, she's there. Councilmember Mayers, are you muted? Are you muted on your local phone? I can hear something. Councilmember Mayers, are you there? Well, I guess I'll take that as a abstention for the moment. I'm a little concerned. Councilmember Mayers, if you can please let us know. I wonder if she just stepped away from her phone for a moment. Okay. So I'll take that as an abstention. And just for good luck, I will vote in favor of it. And so the motion passes 401 with Councilmember Mayers in the abstaining vote at this time.
Thank you.
The Councilmember Mayers now? Yeah. Okay, next item is resolution 2020-R-23 regarding requests for letters during the General Assembly session. And staff has created a draft resolution for us to look at. And I would appreciate a staff report on the resolution, just sort of summarizing it, if at all possible, before we bring in the council and get a motion.
Ms. Barnes?
As we discussed last week, the town often receives requests for position letters during the 90-day General Assembly session. Those requests come in various ways and at various times, and many times there's very tight deadlines, especially as we get to the end of the General Assembly session. So after our discussions last week, we took a stab at drafting a process embodied by the resolution to give a little bit of clarity on how some of the requests will be addressed moving forward. The one item that we didn't discuss is what would happen, of course, if we received a request for a letter that didn't really apply to the town and we didn't have any necessarily a position on that item. So that was one line that we added at the very end of the resolution. So let me pull that up real quickly for you and we can go over just a couple of pieces. Mayor Thompson, would you like me to read the sections of the resolution that apply to the process?
Yes, so just the numbered parts, I think, would be
Certainly.
good to.
I'm happy to. The town manager is authorized to respond on behalf of the town when the mayor and council have already established a position on a topic through the adoption of a vision and commitment statement, resolution, or policy. The town manager is authorized to respond on behalf of the town if the legislation is a legislative priority of the Maryland Municipal League. In consultation with the mayor, if the proposed legislation is on a topic not previously addressed by the adoption of a vision and commitment statement, resolution, or policy, and directly impacts the town or town operations, and the council is scheduled to meet prior to the deadline for a position letter, it will be added to the meeting agenda for the council consideration. In consultation with the mayor, if the proposed legislation is on a topic not previously addressed by the adoption of a vision and commitment statement, resolution, or policy, and directly impacts the town or town operations, and the council is not scheduled to meet prior to the deadline for the position letter, the mayor will call a special legislative meeting for the council to consider their position on the legislation. Lastly, in consultation with the mayor, if the legislation is of a topic not previously addressed by the adoption of a vision and commitment statement, resolution, or policy, and does not directly impact the town or town operations, and the council is not scheduled to meet prior to the deadline for a position letter will not be submitted.
Thank you. Does someone want to make a motion to adopt this and then we can start discussing it? Or if no one wants to make that motion, I guess we don't need to discuss it any further. So
move.
Second.
thank you. Motion was made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Dixon. So if I may, I want to just make a few comments about this. So one is that under item 2, where the town manager is authorized to respond for a legislation that is a legislative priority of the Maryland Municipal League, we could consider adding the Prince George's County Municipal Association as well. In item 4, for calling a special legislative meeting, then I am going to not do that just every time we get a request that comes in. I'm going to be very judicious about deciding what directly impacts the town or town operations and get some feedback from at least a quorum of you guys as to whether you're willing to have a special in order to generate such a letter. But I think that the language as it is fine. And then the one other thing that I wanted to at least put out there for discussion is whether we want to add an item 6 about whether members can respond individually, and merely clarifying that they are speaking on their own behalf or on their behalf as an individual and not on behalf of the town as a whole. And last but not least is that this entire resolution does not discuss testimony at all. So those are just some things that came out of my modestly careful read of this over the weekend. So with that, I will hand it back to the council for discussion.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Of course.
Regards to testimony, I mean, it's a valid point, and I think, as with what a lot of this is just trying to address, is timing, and I think, and as well, availability. Now, of course, we're looking at availability for special legislatives or the like, or to be able to comment in one way informally. Is, in terms of testimony, where are you thinking that, something that yourself or the town manager would do on behalf of the town?
Yes, I mean, I've been asked on multiple occasions to testify at a hearing in favor or against a particular bill, and
okay.
Perhaps we can add a clause that says a similar policy shall apply to testimony, or something to that effect. Since whether it's testimony or a letter is more or less the same.
Okay. But what you were thinking of is, essentially addressing live testimony, or so much like verbal testimony
Exactly.
virtually in person, so to speak.
Exactly. Or in the event that there are actual meetings with people, I'm not expecting that, but in the event that does happen, then it could be in-person testimony.
Okay. Wow. I'm looking at the resolution right now, and I'm just seeing if there's any ways as this could be added by an insertion into one of the first 5 points that we have on here.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't seem like it. So,
if I may, Mr. Mayor,
please.
Just a couple of thoughts. One, the mayor and council have time to consider this, either at a special legislative session on the 21st, or even at the legislative meeting in January. So if you need time, I understand this is the first time you're seeing the draft that the staff created. In terms of providing a provision to make the scope of this clear, to be testimony or a written position, I would suggest perhaps look in the whereas clauses, and because it mentions that we receive requests for positions, and if we say written positions or request for testimony, something there, and then we could repeat that wherever we talk about communicating the town's position on the various topics.
Well, certainly the first 2 items, if position if you replace position, the whereas, or for the purpose of, position, replace that with position letters or testimony, then the first item, item number 1, is fine because it does not discuss whether it's a letter or some other form of response. And similarly for item 2, then it does, it says position letter there, but letter could be struck. Or it could even be expanded to be position letter or testimony. Yeah, actually just replacing the letters, position letters with position letters or testimony, basically throughout the entire document. I think there's 4 or 5 of those, and that would take care of the testimony issue.
In which ones are you seeing that? Which item numbers again?
If you look for position letters, so item 3, at the next to last line of item 3, next to last line of item 4, and last line of item 5, there's the phrase or the my grammar naming is not so good, so the adjective plus noun. And then in the for the purpose of at the top of the whereases, then there's another position letter there. So just
Okay,
replace each of those
okay.
with position letter or testimony.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So that would be one way to address it. And it may be, there's also under the therefore be it resolved, there's a position letter there also. So as I said, I am often asked to provide testimony, and I'm happy to defer to the town manager if that's what the council wishes, but I'm also happy to testify should I be asked. So this I would read this as restricting me to not being able to testify if asked.
Okay. So we would be looking at making amendments in 4 places,
I count 1,
5 places.
2, 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Okay,
Let
and
me,
you're including the opening lines of the now therefore be it resolved. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
I'm trying to capture them all by doing a search right now.
I wish we had numbers on the lines on these copies.
For some reason, my search is not finding the word position. Did I misspell it? Oh, it's just looking on the first page. That's fine.
Well,
Yeah. So there's found another one there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different places where it says position letter.
6. Okay. So we would need to make an individual amendment for each instance, correct?
I think it could be grouped into one amendment, but I believe that specifying all 6 in the single amendment would be a good idea. So, I mean, as the town manager said, we can defer this to a special legislative on the 21st if you prefer.
Yeah. I would suggest that.
Okay.
I mean, it's just, there's a lot here and something's going to get missed. I have a feeling.
Right. And I think it's a good idea to do this a little bit carefully. And we're not in a super hurry. You know, I mean, the session basically has
Not in
started.
session.
Right, but they're already having meetings. So
As we've
it is,
seen, yeah.
it is an issue. Okay. Before, you know, I presume we'll make a motion to postpone to a definite time. But until we do that, are there any other comments from members of the council or the public on this this item?
I have none.
Agree with the postponement. That's it.
Okay. Members of the public? Okay, would someone like to make a motion to postpone to a special legislative meeting on December 21st?
So moved.
Second.
So a motion to, I'll just slide a few words in here, postpone to a definite time, that time being a special legislative meeting to be scheduled for December 21st, this particular item of business. Any discussion of the motion to postpone to a definite time? Any public comments on the motion to postpone to a definite time? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is absent. Councilmember Richardson is absent. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Glad to have you back. I will abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Thank you. That brings us to new business. Are there any items of new business?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, sir.
Yes.
If we could go back to legislative item 3.
Yeah, I think we missed one.
I am just, thank you so much. I am just skipping ahead here. So my apologies.
3-star.
Item number 3, resolution 2020-R-22 regarding sunset of the Farmers Market Dollars Program, extending that to June 30th, 2021. May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion to adopt resolution 2020-R-22 made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there, Councilman Lingua, would you like to discuss, or would you like staff to provide the information?
Staff is welcome to. I would just say in brief, this is essentially extending the program at the Riverdale Park Farmers Market food assistance program that was set up in the spring through to the end of the fiscal year. If staff would like to add to that, please be my guest.
That is correct. The Farmers Market Dollars program has been extremely successful, the most successful of all of the programs that we established in response to the pandemic, assisting over 200 households and 900 individuals. And as the pandemic continues, we see it, the staff recommends extending the program through the end of the fiscal year. Because as everyone has mentioned that in the news, the pandemic is continuing and a lot of these families and households will still need assistance of this nature until then. Obviously, the funding availability and the severity of the pandemic will change exactly how the program will be administered, but we will adapt accordingly.
Thank you. And I will just add on to that statement and say that this will not exceed the budget that was originally set by the mayor and council, or by the council last March when this program was started, because the funding from the CARES Act supplemented funds that had been obligated by the town, and so or supplanted those. So we are not going to be spending any more money than already allocated on this. And also, as was stated in the work session last week, the town staff will figure out a way to taper off the program should the funding start to get tight. Are there additional council questions or comments?
Yes, I just want to come out in support of extending this farm program. I think any visit to our farmers market will show you how it is being utilized, how it is needed within our community. Food insecurity in our community is a real thing. And I personally want to thank staff for playing. This is great government. And it's something that I brag about. It's something that I tell my parents that I'm a part of, to help people find nourishment in a time of need is as good as we can be. And I'm thankful that we have such an incredible staff that put this program together. And I would love to see this go on as long as we could afford it. So thank you very much, staff.
Thank you, Councilmember. Are there additional staff, or excuse me, additional public or council comments?
None here.
Hearing none, I will move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Dixon.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is absent. Councilmember Richardson is absent. Councilmember Mayers.
Aye.
Thank you. I abstain. The motion passes 401. And by the way, if you read your Robert's rules, when I stray off of the agenda, then the motion to make is to say to the chair, Mr. Chair, I call for the orders of the day. So just remember that if I stray off of the agenda in the future. So we're now ready to move to new business. Are there any items of new business?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
As I brought up previously, the request by former council member for the town of University Park, David Broche, who's involved with the Greater Riverdale Cares Route 1 Community Cares food program, about his request or seeking to see if the town would consider an additional $10,000 donation or appropriation to that program. Like to ask the council as well as staff their thoughts on this.
Mr. Town Manager, can you discuss the finances and budget implications of this?
Yes, sir. So when it was mentioned earlier in the meeting, I've reached out to Mr. Jones, Mr. Shelton, and Mr. Smith, and we would request an opportunity to finish our work on projecting the budget of all of our programs. I spoke about that at the last meeting, and we can have that figured out by the or in advance of the special session that you're going to have on the 21st.
21st. Okay.
And in my head, I think we can work out something. It may be that we have to move some other monies around in the Economic Development Fund, but we really just need an opportunity to factor this request in with our other programs before I could definitively say where the money would come from.
Okay.
And I don't believe that the food insecurity is going to go away at the end of the calendar year. I think it's, if anything, going to get worse in January. So I think it's fine to delay. Is that
Okay.
acceptable to you, Councilmember?
That's fine. That's fine. I was just looking to get a sense of how we all wanted to move forward on this. I was not looking to make any type of motion one way or the other.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councilmember Lingua,
Yes, sir.
we may be able to get you an answer by the end of this week in terms of a little more certainty on how we can make this happen. So we'll work towards that.
If that's possible, that would be, that'd be appreciated. Yet at the same time, I know that there's currently a lot that you're involved with in regards to making sure that CARES Act money already previously appropriated to us, which you are trying to make sure is accounted for and encumbered by the end of the year, and that you have that deadline a week from tomorrow to address. If that is going to be more of a priority than this, that's understandable.
I appreciate that. We'll see what we're able to do for you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other items of new business? Hearing none. Are there any items of unfinished business? Hearing none. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. No second.
Second.
Motion has been made to adjourn by Councilman Foe, seconded by Councilmember Dixon. We did not discuss the motion to adjourn according to the rules of order, so I'll do a roll call vote immediately. Councilmember Dixon?
Aye.
Councilmember Foe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua?
Aye.
Councilmember Henry is absent. Councilmember Richardson is absent. Councilmember Mayers?
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion to adjourn passes 401. We are adjourned at 8:55 p.m. Thank you all very much for attending and paying attention and keeping me on track.
Be well, stay well, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.